The mental connection broke like a thread snapping. One moment, Yuna was floating in the shared space between their minds. And the next, she was fully back in her body, sitting in the demonstration chair. Feeling the cold fingers slowly pull away from her temples, she opened her eyes. The classroom was completely still. 30 different species sat frozen in their seats, staring at what had just happened. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the station systems and the strange, uneven breathing coming from Instructor Velix. The Mindari was standing in front of Yuna, but she looked nothing like the confident instructor who had begun the lesson. Her skin was still changing colors, not the smooth transitions of a controlled mind, but the wild flickering of someone who had lost control completely. Her hands were trembling at her sides. Her eyes were fixed on some point in the distance, seeing something no one else could see. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Velix spoke. Her voice was small and rough, nothing like the smooth water it had been before. "Class is dismissed." No one moved. "I said class is dismissed." The words came out louder this time, almost a shout. It was the most emotion any Mindari had shown in public in living memory. Students began to stand, slowly, uncertainly. They gathered their things and moved toward the door. But their eyes kept returning to the two figures at the front of the room. The young human woman still sitting in the chair, and the ancient alien instructor who looked like she was falling apart. Yuna stood up carefully. She felt strange, not bad, exactly, but different. Having someone inside your mind, touching your deepest memories, was not something you recovered from quickly. But she was not hurt. She was not broken. She had been through worse. "Instructor Velix," she said quietly, "are you leave?" Velix's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, just leave me alone." Yuna hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay, to help, to offer comfort to this being who was clearly struggling with feelings she had never learned to handle. But she also understood that sometimes people needed space. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do was step away. "I am sorry if I hurt you," said Yuna. "That was not my intention." Velix turned to look at her. The instructor's eyes were wet, actually wet, with something that might have been tears. Mindari were not supposed to cry. They had trained that ability out of themselves thousands of years ago. "You did not hurt me," said Velix. Her skin flickered through a dozen colors as she spoke. You showed me something I had forgotten. Something I did not want to remember. The child in the silver grass." Velix closed her eyes. A single tear, the first she had shed in over 200 years, rolled down her cheek. "I used to be happy," she whispered. "I used to feel things. I used to be alive." Yuna reached out and gently touched the instructor's arm. The gesture was simple, human, the kind of thing you might do for a friend who was struggling. Velix flinched at first, but she did not pull away. "You can feel things again," said Yuna. "It is not too late. It is never too late." Velix shook her head slowly. "I do not know how. I have been empty for so long. I have forgotten how to fill myself." "Then learn," said Yuna. "Start small. Let yourself feel one thing, just one thing, and see what happens. It will be scary at first. It might hurt, but I promise you, it is worth it." The classroom was empty now. All the other students had left, leaving only the two of them in the large, silent room. The holographic display had faded. The demonstration chair had sunk back into the floor. Everything looked normal, but nothing would ever be the same. "Why are you being kind to me?" asked Velix. "I tried to humiliate you. I wanted to break you in front of everyone. I wanted to prove that humans were weak." Yuna smiled gently. "Because I understand why you did it. You were not trying to hurt me, not really. You were trying to convince yourself that emptiness was better than feeling. You were trying to prove that your way of living was right. And instead, you saw that there is another way. A harder way, maybe. A more painful way. But also a more beautiful way. Velix looked at Yuna for a long moment. Then, slowly, her skin settled into a color it had never shown before, a soft, warm pink that seemed to glow from within. "What is this?" asked Velix, looking down at her own arms with confusion. "I do not recognize this color." Yuna's smile grew wider. "I think it might be gratitude, instructor. Or maybe the beginning of friendship. I'm not sure even humans have a word for it." They stood together in the empty classroom. The alien and the human. Two beings from worlds so different they should have had nothing in common. But in that moment, they understood each other perfectly. Finally, Yuna turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back. "Instructor Velix?" "Yes, the child in the silver grass, she is still inside you. Take care of her." And then Yuna was gone. She walked through the corridor, past groups of students who stared at her with new expressions on their faces. Word had already spread. Everyone had heard about what happened in Velix's classroom. Everyone knew that the human had done something impossible. She found Taiho waiting for her at the end of the hall. Her friend's face was a mixture of concern and amazement. "Are you okay?" he asked immediately. "I heard what happened. Someone said Velix tried to break you, and you somehow broke her instead. Is that true?" Yuna laughed softly. "I did not break anyone. I just showed her something she had forgotten. But how?" Taiho fell into step beside her as they walked toward the dormitory section. "How did you stay so calm?" She was inside your mind. She was showing everyone your worst memories. I would have fallen apart. Yuna thought about the question for a moment. How did she explain something that felt so natural to her? How did she put into words a truth that humans learn simply by living, by surviving, by getting back up every time life knocked them down? "Do you remember when we were children?" she asked. "When we learned to ride bicycles?" Taiho looked confused. "What does that have to do with anything? When you learn to ride a bicycle, you fall down. Many times. It hurts. Sometimes you cry. But you get back on anyway, because you want to learn. And eventually, you stop falling. Eventually, it becomes easy. So life is the same way. Every time something bad happens, every time we feel pain or fear or shame, we are falling off a bicycle. And every time we get back up, we become a little bit stronger. We learn a little bit more. Eventually, the things that used to break us become just part of the ride." They reached the dormitory entrance. The artificial light was dimmer here, designed to help students rest. Yuna stopped and turned to face her friend. "Velix thought she was exposing my weakness," she said. "But she was actually showing everyone how many times I have fallen down and gotten back up. She was showing them how many times I have been hurt and kept going anyway. That is not weakness, Taiho. That is the strongest thing any human can do." Taiho was quiet for a moment, thinking about her words. Then he asked the question that everyone on the station would be asking in the days to come. How do you do it? How do you face all that pain and not break? Yuna smiled. It was the same smile she had given Velix, warm and understanding, and full of something that aliens would never quite be able to name. "Humans do not hide from pain," she said. "We befriend it. We invite it in, let it teach us what it needs to teach us, and then we let it go. Pain is not our enemy, Taiho. It is our oldest teacher." She touched his shoulder gently and walked into the dormitory, leaving him standing there with a new understanding forming in his mind. Outside the station, the stars turned slowly in the endless dark. Somewhere among them was Earth, small, violent, beautiful Earth, where creatures had learned to suffer and survive, to break and heal, to fall down and get back up again. and in a classroom on Orbital Station 7, an ancient Mindari sat alone in the dim light, feeling the first stirrings of something she had forgotten existed: hope. The holographic display above Yuna's head changed. The images of human pain and fear faded away, replaced by something new. Something that made the entire class lean forward in their seats. They saw the Mindari homeworld dot. It was beautiful. Rolling hills covered in silver grass. Cities that floated gently above crystal-clear lakes. Skies painted in soft colors that never turned harsh or stormy. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. The Mindari have lived on their world for over 50,000 years, said Yuna, a voice echoing through both the mental space and the physical classroom. In all that time, they have never faced a natural disaster. Their planet has no earthquakes, no volcanic eruptions, no extreme weather. The temperature never changes more than a few degrees. The images shifted, showing Mindari history. Yuna was pulling directly from Velix's memories now, showing what the instructor had been taught as a child. They have never been invaded, continued Yuna. They have never fought a war. When they first contacted other species, those species were afraid of their telepathic powers and left them alone. The Mindari have never had to fight for survival. They have never known real danger. The classroom was completely silent. Some students were looking at Velix with new expressions on their faces. The Mindari had always presented themselves as superior beings who had evolved beyond the need for emotion. But this was different. This was a species that had simply never been tested. Because they never faced hardship, they never needed emotions, said Yuna. Fear was useless because there was nothing to fear. Anger was useless because there was nothing to fight. Even joy became useless because there was no struggle to make victory sweet. So they decided that emotions were primitive. They began to train themselves to feel nothing. The images showed the mental training Velix had undergone. The white rooms. The silence. The endless meditation designed to empty the mind of all feeling. Children sitting alone for hours, days, weeks, learning to become blank. They call it discipline, said Yuna. They call it mental clarity. But it is not strength. It is fear. They are afraid of what they might feel if they allowed themselves to feel anything at all. Velix stood frozen in the mental space, watching her own memories being displayed for everyone to see. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to feel shame or fear or anything at all. But she had been trained so well that even now, even in this moment, she could not remember how to feel dot, and that was the most damning truth of all. Humans are different, said Yuna. The display shifted to show Earth, but not the beautiful parts, the hard parts. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Plagues that killed millions. Wars that destroyed entire civilizations. We survived everything, said Yuna. Not by becoming empty, but by feeling everything and continuing anyway. When we were afraid, we used that fear to stay alert. When we were angry, we used that anger to fight back. When we were sad, we used that sadness to remember what we had lost and why it mattered. The images showed humans throughout history. Farmers planting crops in harsh soil. Doctors treating patients during epidemics. Soldiers standing together against impossible odds. Scientists working through the night to solve problems that seemed unsolvable. Our emotions are not weaknesses, said Yuna. They are tools. They are fuel. They are the reason we survived when so many other species on our planet did not. She turned to look at Velix directly. And that is why you fear us, isn't it, instructor? Not because we are primitive. Not because we are chaotic. But because we can do something you cannot. We can suffer and grow stronger. We can break and heal. We can face the darkness inside ourselves and come out the other side still fighting. Velix's form flickered violently. For the first time in decades, something was stirring behind her mental walls. Something she had locked away so long ago that she had forgotten it existed. "You told the class that my mind was like mud," continued Yuna, "full of emotions mixed together. But you missed the most important part. That mud is fertile. Things grow in it. Ideas, courage, hope. What grows in your perfect, clear water, instructor? What has the Mindari's mental discipline ever created?" The question hung in the air. Velix tried to think of an answer. She tried to point to the great achievements of her species. But when she searched her memories, she found something troubling. The Mindari had not created anything new in over 10,000 years. Their art was empty, beautiful forms with no meaning. Their philosophy was circular, endless discussions that went nowhere. Their technology was borrowed from other species, because the Mindari no longer had the passion to invent. They had achieved perfect mental clarity, and in doing so, they had stopped growing. "You are jealous of us," said Yuna softly. "You look at humans and you see everything you were taught to reject. Passion, creativity, fire. You tell yourselves that we are primitive. But deep down, in the places you refuse to look, you wish you could feel what we feel." The holographic display showed one final image. It was Velix herself, not as an adult instructor, but as a child. Before the training. Before the white rooms. Before she learned to be empty dot, the child was laughing. She was running through silver grass, chasing some small creature, her face full of pure, simple joy. She did not know yet that this feeling was wrong. She did not know that she would spend the rest of her life trying to forget how to feel this way. "This is who you were," said Yuna, "before they emptied you. Before they called your emotions weakness and trained you to be nothing. This child still exists inside you, instructor. She is still waiting, still hoping that someday you will let her feel again." Velix stared at the image of her younger self. The carefully constructed walls around her mind began to crack. Not because Yuna was attacking them, but because something inside Velix was pushing against them from within. "Why are you showing me this?" whispered Velix. Her voice was breaking. Colors were moving across her skin in the physical world colors the Mindari only showed when they were losing control. "Because you asked me if I was afraid," said Yuna. "And I want you to understand my answer. I am not afraid of my emotions. I am not afraid of pain or loss or sadness. These things are difficult, but they are also beautiful. They are what make life worth living." She reached out and gently touched Velix's flickering form. "And I am not your enemy, instructor. I'm not trying to hurt you. I am trying to show you something that the Mindari forgot a long time ago." "What?" Yuna smiled with genuine warmth. "That feeling things is not weakness. It is the bravest thing anyone can do." The mental connection began to fade. The holographic display dimmed. The classroom slowly came back into focus around them. Velix was still standing at the front of the room, her fingers still pressed against Yuna's temples. But everything had changed. The instructor's skin was cycling through colors so rapidly that it looked almost white. Her hands were shaking, and in her eyes, her ancient, empty, carefully controlled eyes, something new was beginning to shine, something that looked almost like tears. The mental connection froze. Everything stopped moving, the swirling memories, the dark space around them, even Velix herself. The instructor stood completely still, her light form flickering like a broken screen. "What did you do?" whispered Velix. Her voice no longer sounded smooth. It sounded thin and afraid. "I did nothing," said Yuna calmly. "You opened a door between our minds. Doors work both ways. That is impossible. I am trained. I am Mindari. My mental barriers are perfect." Yuna shook her head. "Your barriers are strong, but you were so focused on attacking me that you forgot to defend yourself. While you were digging through my memories, I was watching yours." Velix's form turned a color that Yuna had never seen before, a pale, sickly yellow. In the classroom, the students noticed that the instructor's physical skin was changing too. The confident purple was gone. Something was wrong. "You cannot have seen anything," said Velix. "There is nothing to see. My mind is clear. My mind is empty," finished Yuna. "Your mind is empty, instructor. Not clear, empty. There is a difference." The mental space around them began to shift. The darkness that had been filled with Yuna's memories started to fill with something else, fragments of images. Pieces of thoughts, echoes of feelings that did not belong to Yuna. They belonged to Velix. "No," said Velix. She raised her hands as if to push the images away. "Stop. You cannot do this." "I am not doing anything," said Yuna. "The connection is doing it. Your thoughts are leaking through, just like mine did. The only difference is that I am not trying to stop them." The first image became clear. It showed a young Mindari child sitting alone in a white room. The room was completely empty except for a single chair. The child sat there for hours, staring at the wall, thinking about nothing. "Mental training," said Velix quickly. "We begin our discipline at a young age. It is necessary." Another image formed. The same child, now older, sitting in a circle with other young Mindari. An adult was speaking to them, explaining that emotions were dangerous. Feelings led to chaos. The only path to wisdom was to remove all desires, all fears, all attachments. "We learn to control ourselves," said Velix. Her voice was getting weaker. "It is our strength." More images came. A teenage Velix being punished for laughing too loud. Another punishment for crying when a pet died. Another punishment for showing interest in art instead of pure thought. Each time, the message was the same. Feeling is weakness. Control is everything. And then, the deepest memory of all. Velix as an adult, standing before the Council of Minds. They were congratulating her on achieving perfect mental clarity. Her consciousness had been tested and found empty of all emotional contamination. She was a perfect Mindari. She felt nothing. But in the corner of that memory, hidden so deep that even Velix had forgotten it was there, was a small feeling. A tiny spark of something that refused to die. Loneliness. Yun looked at the memory and understood. She understood everything. "You asked me why I did not fight when you entered my mind," said Yuna. "I will tell you now. I did not fight because I have nothing to be ashamed of. My fears, my pain, my darkness, they are part of my story. I have made peace with them." She took a step closer to Velix. "But you, instructor, you have spent your entire life running from your feelings. You were taught that emotions made you weak, so you buried them. You locked them away and pretended they did not exist. You convinced yourself that emptiness was the same as strength." Velix was trembling now. Her light form was barely holding together. "Stop talking," she said. "You do not understand." "You can't understand. I understand perfectly," said Yuna. "You target humans because you are afraid of us. Not because we are weak, but because we are something you can never be. And what is that?" "Free." The word hung in the mental space between them. Velix stared at Yuna with wide eyes that showed colors the human had never seen before, colors that had no name. Feelings that had been locked away for so long, they had forgotten how to express themselves. "We feel everything," continued Yuna. "We feel joy and sorrow, anger and love, fear and hope. We do not lock these things away. We carry them with us. Sometimes they hurt us. Sometimes they almost destroy us. But they also make us strong in ways you cannot imagine." She gestured at the memories still floating around them, her memories. The ones Velix had tried to use as weapons. "You showed them a human who was afraid of death. but I sat with my grandmother when she died. I held her hand. I cried, and then I smiled because I remembered how much she loved me. That memory does not make me weak. It makes me rich. Valak said nothing. You showed them a human who saw violence and war. But those images made me decide to come here, to the stars, to try to find a better way. My despair became my purpose. Still nothing. You showed them a human who felt alone and inadequate. But those feelings taught me humility. They taught me to be kind to others who also feel lost. My weakness became my wisdom. Yuna stopped walking. She was standing right in front of Velix now, close enough to touch. What did your emptiness teach you, instructor? What did your perfect clarity give you? Velix's form flickered. For a moment, she looked like the child in the white room again, small, alone, sitting in silence because she had been told that silence was the only way. I want to break the connection now, said Velix. Her voice was barely a whisper. Please. Yuna looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. I will let you go, she said. But first, I want to ask you a question. In front of the class. One question, and then we are done. Velix hesitated. She knew she should refuse. She knew she should end the connection, dismiss the class, pretend this had never happened. But something in Yuna's eyes stopped her. Something patient and kind. Something that Velix had never seen before because she had never allowed herself to feel it. Ask your question, said Velix. Yuna smiled gently. May I share with the class what I found in your mind? Just as you shared what you found in mine. It was a simple question. A fair question. Velix had opened Yuna's mind for everyone to see. Now Yuna was asking permission to do the same. But to say yes would mean exposing everything. Every hidden doubt. Every buried fear. Every piece of herself that Velix had spent her whole life denying. The classroom waited in complete silence, and slowly, Velix nodded. Yes, she said. Show them? Yuna's eyes widened slightly. She had not expected that answer, but she had asked the question honestly. And she would honor the answer the same way. She reached out, took hold of the connection, and began to show the class what she had found. The connection was like falling into deep water. One moment, Yuna was aware of her body in the chair, the cold fingers on her temples, the sound of students breathing around her. The next moment, she was somewhere else entirely. She was floating in darkness. But it was not empty darkness. It was full of shapes and colors, memories and feelings, all swirling around her like leaves in a storm. This was her mind, she realized. This was what her consciousness looked like from the inside, and she was not alone. Velix was there with her. The instructor appeared as a tall figure made of pale light, moving through Yuna's memories, like someone walking through a garden. She touched things here and there, examining them, deciding what to pick. Interesting, said Velix. Her voice echoed in the mental space. So much chaos. So many emotions fighting each other. How do you even function with a mind like this? Yuna did not answer. She simply watched as Velix explored, thought the instructor found something, and stopped. She reached out and pulled it toward her, and suddenly they were both inside a memory. Yuna was 7 years old. She was standing in a hospital room, looking at her grandmother lying in a bed. The old woman's face was pale and thin. Machines beeped around her. Yuna's mother was crying in the corner. The death, said Velix, observing the scene. Your species is so fragile. You live such short lives, and you spend so much of that time afraid of ending. The memory shifted. Now Yuna was 12. She was watching a news broadcast about a war on the other side of Earth. Buildings were burning. People were running and screaming. The reporter's voice was calm, but the images were not. Violence, said Velix. Your species cannot stop hurting each other. Even when you have everything you need, you find reasons to fight and kill. Another shift. Yuna was 16. She was sitting alone in her room at night, staring at the ceiling. She could not sleep. Her mind was full of dark thoughts about the future, about climate change, about political conflicts, about the possibility that humans might destroy themselves before they ever reach the stars. Despair, said Velix. You are aware of your own failures as a species, yet you cannot change. You see the end coming, and you do nothing to stop it. In the classroom, the other students watched as holographic images appeared above Yuna's head. Velix was projecting the memories for everyone to see. They saw the dying grandmother. They saw the burning cities. They saw the young human girl lying awake at night, afraid of the future. Some students looked away. Others watched with open fascination. A few were smiling. They had always suspected that humans were a weak species, and now they had proof. But Velix was not finished. She dug deeper into Yuna's mind, searching for more. She found the day Yuna learned that humans were not respected in the galaxy. She found the moment when Yuna realized she might never see Earth again. She found every rejection, every insult, every time someone had looked at Yuna like she was less than nothing. Loneliness, said Velix, displaying another memory. You came here thinking you could prove yourself. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that humans will never be accepted. You will always be outsiders. You will always be alone. She pulled out more memories. Yuna's fears about failing her exams. Her worries about disappointing her family. Her secret doubt that she was smart enough, strong enough, good enough to be here. Inadequacy, announced Velix. Despite all your efforts, you feel like a fraud. You are waiting for everyone to discover that you do not belong. The classroom was completely silent now. The holographic display showed image after image from Yuna's mind, her fears, her shynesses, her darkest moments. It was like watching someone being stripped naked in front of a crowd. Velix's skin had turned a bright, satisfied purple. This was exactly what she wanted. She was proving her point. She was showing the entire class that humans were weak, emotional, undisciplined creatures who could not control their own minds. Do you see now? Asked Velix, addressing the class while still connected to Yuna. This is what lies beneath the surface of every human. They pretend to be brave. They pretend to be confident. But inside, they are just frightened children, waiting for the darkness to swallow them. She turned back to Yuna in the mental space. The human woman was still floating there, watching everything happen. She had not tried to fight. She had not tried to hide anything. She had simply allowed Velix to take whatever she wanted. You are surprisingly passive, said Velix. Most subjects struggle. They try to push me out, to protect their secrets. But you just let me in. Why? Yuna looked at her. In the mental space, she appeared exactly as she did in the physical world, a young woman with dark hair and calm eyes. There was no fear on her face, no shame, no anger. Because I have nothing to hide, said Yuna. Velix laughed. It was a cold sound that echoed through the mental space. Nothing to hide? I have just shown your entire class every fear and weakness you possess. Your shame is on display for everyone to see. That is not shame, said Yuna. Those are just memories. Things that happened. Things I felt. They are part of me, but they do not define me. Velix's form flickered with confusion. This was not the response she expected. You are lying to yourself, said the instructor. You feel humiliated. You must feel humiliated. I have exposed your deepest vulnerabilities. Yuna shook her head slowly. You have shown them my pain. But you made a mistake, instructor. You thought my pain would make me weak. But that is not how it works for humans. What do you mean? Pain does not destroy us, said Yuna. It builds us. Every fear you showed them, I have faced those fears. Every shame you displayed, I have carried that shame and kept walking. You think you have revealed my weakness? You have revealed my strength." Velix's form went still. In the classroom, the holographic images had stopped changing. The students were watching with new expressions on their faces. Not pity anymore, but something else. Something like curiosity. Something like respect. "You have made an error," said Yuna. Her voice was quiet but clear. "You showed them a human's darkness. But you forgot something important." "What?" "You forgot to show them how a human survives that darkness." And now, Yuna took a step toward Velix in the mental space. For the first time, the instructor moved backward. "Now I think it is time for you to answer a question, instructor." "What question?" Yuna looked at her with eyes that held no fear, no anger, only a deep and patient understanding. "What are you hiding?" And suddenly, Velix realized that the connection between them worked both ways. While she had been so busy searching through Yuna's mind, she had not noticed that Yuna had been searching through hers. The instructor tried to pull away. She tried to break the connection, but it was too late. Yuna had already found what she was looking for. The morning light on Station Orbital 7 was not real sunlight. It was a pale blue glow that came from the ceiling panels, designed to help different species feel comfortable. But for Yuna, nothing about this place felt comfortable. She had been at the Galactic Academy for 3 months now, and every day still felt like a test. She walked through the wide hallway toward her classroom. Around her, students of many species moved in different directions. Some floated. Some crawled. Some walked on legs that bent the wrong way. Yuna was the only human in this part of the station. Sometimes she felt like an animal in a zoo, with everyone watching to see what the strange Earth creature would do next. Her friend Taiho had warned her about today. He was another human student, but he studied in a different building. They had met during the first week and became close quickly. Being the only humans on the station made them like family. "Be careful in Instructor Velix's class today," Taiho had told her during breakfast. His face was serious. "I heard she is planning something. She does this every cycle. She picks one student and breaks them in front of everyone." Yuna had nodded but said nothing. She had heard stories about Velix. Everyone had. The instructor was from a species called the Mindari. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed colors based on their mood. Their most famous ability was telepathy. They could read minds, share thoughts, and some said dig into your deepest memories and pull them out for everyone to see. The Mindari believed they were the most advanced species in the galaxy, not because of technology or strength, but because of their minds. They saw other species as children who had not yet grown up. And humans? The Mindari thought humans were barely more than animals. Emotional, violent, afraid. Yuna reached the classroom door and stopped. She took a deep breath. The door was made of a material that looked like glass, but was stronger than steel. Through it, she could see her classmates already sitting in their curved seats. At the front of the room stood Instructor Velix. Velix was watching the door. Waiting. Yuna stepped forward, and the door slid open with a soft sound. Every eye in the room turned toward her. She felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had learned that showing fear was the worst thing you could do in this place. "Ah," said Velix. Her voice was smooth like water. "The human arrives. We were waiting for you." Yuna walked to her seat without speaking. She sat down and placed her hands flat on the desk. Around her, the other students shifted nervously. They knew something was coming. Velix moved to the center of the room. Her skin was pale purple today, which meant she was feeling confident, pleased, like a cat about to catch a mouse. "Today," said Velix, "we will have a special lesson. We have been studying the nature of consciousness and mental strength. But theory is not enough. We must have practice. She looked directly at Yuna. And I have chosen our practice subject. Yuna felt the eyes of 30 different species turn toward her. Some looked curious. Some looked sorry for her. A few looked excited, eager to see the human humiliated. "Human Yuna," said Velix. "Please come to the front of the room." Yuna did not move immediately. She sat still for a moment, letting the silence grow. Then slowly she stood up. She walked to the front of the room and stopped a few meters away from Velix. The instructor was almost 2 meters tall. Yuna had to look up to meet her eyes. "Do you know what we are going to do today?" asked Velix. "No," said Yuna. Her voice was steady. "We are going to perform a mental clarity test," said Velix. "I will connect my mind to yours. I will look inside your thoughts. And I will show the class what I find." A ripple of whispers moved through the room. Mental clarity tests were supposed to be private. They were supposed to be done carefully, with consent and preparation. What Velix was describing was something else. It was an invasion. "The purpose," continued Velix, "is to demonstrate the difference between a disciplined mind and an undisciplined one. The Mindari have spent thousands of years training our consciousness. We have no hidden fears, no buried shame. Our minds are like clear water." She smiled, and her skin shifted to a deeper purple. "Humans, on the other hand, are famous for their chaotic minds. Fear, anger, guilt, desire all mixed together like mud. This will be an educational demonstration." Yuna said nothing. She simply waited. "Are you afraid?" asked Velix. "Should I be?" replied Yuna. A few students made sounds of surprise. It was not common for anyone to talk back to Velix. The instructor's skin flickered for just a moment, showing a hint of orange annoyance. "Fear would be the logical response," said Velix. "I am about to expose your innermost thoughts to this entire room. Every secret, every shame, every nightmare you have tried to forget." Yuna looked at her calmly. "Then let's begin." Velix stared at her for a long moment. The instructor had expected fear. She had expected begging or protest. This quiet acceptance was not what she wanted. But she could not back down now. The entire class was watching. "Very well," said Velix. "Sit in the demonstration chair." A chair rose from the floor near the center of the room. It was made of the same glass-like material as the door, with metal parts that curved around where the head would rest. Yuna walked to it and sat down without hesitation. Velix approached and placed her long fingers on either side of Yuna's head. Her skin was cold. Yuna could feel a strange pressure building behind her eyes, the beginning of the mental connection. "Class," said Velix, "watch carefully. You are about to see the true nature of the human mind." Yuna closed her eyes. She thought of Earth. She thought of her family. She thought of all the things that had brought her here, to this moment, in this chair, with an alien's fingers pressed against her skull. She was not afraid. She had stopped being afraid a long time ago. Velix began to push into her mind, and Yuna let her in.